start down here.
Hi, everybody. This is Shane Schultz. I am the creator and host of the Arisen Strength podcast that's shown every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This happens to be a show that is a special show because we're actually shooting it on Monday, which is Memorial Day.
And it's 9 o'clock, not 8 o'clock.
And it's 9 o'clock, not 8 o'clock. So want to welcome you to the show. We had some technical difficulties last night, and with it being Memorial Day, it was just one of those things that we decided that it was best to go ahead and shoot the show at a better time tonight, to where we were able to get things done that we wanted to get them done.
Hopefully we had a great weekend. We had a great night yesterday.
We really did.
We had a big cookout, people over, hot dogs, hamburgers, sausage and peppers. What else was there?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. I mean, hell, I'm part Italian, so sausage and peppers, I'm there. If you want me to be a cheap guest and everything, I can be there anytime. Just send me the invite. I'm right there. So, our
one thing we didn't get to do though was the s'mores. We were going to have the open fire.
I heard, yeah.
We were going to have the s'mores, but in our area it's been really dry lately, and they had some severe fire restrictions, so we couldn't fire up the.
And we know about fire, so we had our own little fire, in this area. It wasn't. That's actually not little by any means. It took down 4 houses.
Right on our block, 2 doors down.
Right on our block, just.
The rest of the block almost.
Just down the road. So yeah, it was. And that happened to be during the time when we were going to shoot too. So it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we were going to shoot. But anyways, happy Memorial Day, everybody. Definitely want to take time to mention thank you, a big, huge thank you to those men and women who sacrifice their luxury of their normal lives to be over and to protect our freedom, which is really intangible to our country, but it's something that is so significant to me, to Wayne, to so many of us that are here.
And Memorial Day is especially the one where you specifically remember the ones who made the ultimate sacrifice and gave their lives for these causes. Just time to remember that, wow, there's people out there who are dying so that we can have the style of life that we have now.
To be able to do the things that we do. This show wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for those types of actions and those types of commitments to the service that's out there in order to protect our freedom and our country. So a big, huge thank you to all of those. I don't get really hyped up on when it comes to Memorial Day because it to me it is a day of reflection on those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And I even mentioned on my site today is that every soldier turns to their loved ones, whether it be their sons, daughters, parents, or loved ones to their heart, and say, I'll be back, and I'll be back quicker than what you even miss me, or something in that sense. And they say it with bravado. They say it with commitment to it because they want to make it easy for those who they love to let them go for that period of time. But in the back of their mind, they know that they're going to be involved in something and that can very, very possibly make it so that those are empty promises at best, and that's something that every soldier knows that they're going through, that's a possibility, and to know that that's a possibility and still go, that takes a hero's heart. So I greatly appreciate it, and I acknowledge our troops in any way that I can, in every way that I can. And I know that Wayne is very, very similar.
Yeah, one thing I was, you may have seen this when you're out about different places. The restaurants sometimes will set a table for one for the unknown / missing soldier.
Right.
And then there's actually a whole. Turns out there's all these orchestrated, choreographed in some way that it's not just you don't set a table. It's like they'll set a table for one. Usually it's a round table if you have it, but they'll use a square table, a single chair, and then the chair will be leaned up on the table. So it's like, so nobody can sit there, kind of thing. But then the table will have a plate with usually lemons and salt on the plate, and and the lemons remind us of the bitterness of the thing, and then the salt represents the tears of the people who were left back at home. And then there's usually there'll be a yellow ribbon around a candle. The whole table, the way it's set, is all very symbolic.
Oh, that's.
And so if you're out and about, you saw these tables. I don't know, maybe we should talk about it last week, so you can look at it for this week. But hey, next year when you go out, if you see one of these little tables set up, carefully look at it and see that, and you'll see that it has all these elements in it. It's very, very interesting.
That is interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I'm glad that you brought that up because I will look for it from now on. Something because like I said, any way that we can recognize those who make that sacrifice to go over and to fight something that some don't necessarily understand, but they acknowledge the need, and they go ahead and they make the ultimate sacrifice to where they have to go over and possibly not ever come back home because of it. So, anyways, happy Memorial Day. It is Monday, like I said. It's not Sunday. We had some situations with the audio which did not work at all, and a lot of that had to do with my own misgivings for that night. I kind of missed the fact that the audio wasn't working at all.
It's the tool thing, right?
Yeah.
We have 2 checks on that.
Yeah.
We didn't make.
Yeah.
I should have picked up on it. So we did the entire show.
Yeah.
Over an hour recording, and then we're watching it. We do our after show breakdown, and we're watching that show. I was like, why? So now I'm checking the audio equipment around here. Well, maybe my speakers aren't turned on, or maybe no, there's no audio.
Yeah, I wish I could say we were doing a mime show or we were doing some sort of sign language. That wasn't the case at all. So, but we do full disclosure here. So so we're
not perfect. This show's not about being perfect, is it?
No, it's not, and that's okay. Because I have enough issues when it comes to trying to be perfect, even though that it's an impossibility. Doesn't mean that I don't strive to be so.
That's it. Original strength is not about being perfect. It's about not giving up. Right. And it's about, it happened. We're about here again today, and we'll do it again today.
Yeah. And we'll be just fine. And we've had issues in the past, and we've gotten through those. And I think that the shows have really become better over time. As to where our audio's getting really good. Our picture is crystal. I mean, we really have made some upgrades to where that's possible. So that's just one of those things. Like Wayne said, Arisen strength is not about perfection. It's about strength within to persevere what it is that we go through. And
we don't make these mistakes on purpose just to test ourselves. I mean,
no, I can't. I can't even say that. I'll be honest with you. I'm saying all the right words and everything. That doesn't mean that I wasn't just a little bit, unnerved, at the time. I mean, I was, we'll talk about it in a little bit, as to where it just wasn't meant to be that day, and that's the way it was. But this is the last week of Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's funny how it's like, man, it went by quick. I think that we did a great job in order to be able to bring some tough subjects to talk about, and bring awareness to them. And also, not to say that we're going to stop. We're going to continue to do that. With tonight's show is going to be about addiction, but it's going to be the first show of 2 that we have set aside for that subject of addiction. So, it's something that we're going to continue, and we have we have it mapped out. We have a map that we have planned for this year. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be changes, but I think we really hit the mark. When it came to mental
Without
health
committing
awareness
any
month.
dates, though, can you throw out maybe a couple of topics that people might look forward to?
To look forward to. Definitely, we're going to work on chronic illness. We're going to work with chronic illness. We're going to work with chronic pain. I've committed myself to bringing awareness to conditions that mold is part of. Mold diseases that come about because of there. So I've committed myself to that. Did I say Lyme disease? We're gonna talk about Lyme disease. We're gonna talk about suicide. We're gonna talk about suicide prevention. We're gonna talk about RSD, which is a chronic pain condition. That is something that I'm learning more and more about. But it's something that I had no idea was even out there until this year. So we've got a lot of things that are in the works, and we've got a lot of announcements, more announcements. Even today, we made a significant move that I plan on moving Arisen Strength toward. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but we'll be making an announcement soon. And so we're growing, we're getting bigger. Looking back on it, we're pretty darn big for what it is that we started out with, just in January. And so, I'm pretty proud of what it is that we've got going, and I have no intentions of slowing down. I fully plan on, hitting the ground running and running faster, but not running too fast to where we're missing the content, because that's the important part that I think Arisen Strength does, is that it brings content from a patient's point of view. That's something that needs to be brought out, because not only is it educational for society, but it's supporting to those who need it the most, and those are the people that are just like myself, that are more like me than what they are different. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get bigger and we're going to get better, but at the same time, we're not going to lose our primary objective, which is to do the things that we do because of the way that we do them. So that's the big thing. We are also going to have our first public event on August 1st here in Troy, New York, to where we're going to, we're going to have an event we're going to play a game. It's a version of kickball. It's a game that's going to make, no matter how old you are, it's going to make you a kid again. And then we're going to share a meal together. We're going to cook out. I haven't figured it out whether we're going to cook out or we're going to have pizza or whatever. And then we're going to have a story hour, which is for people to tell their different types of challenges and struggles that they face, and yet nobody would ever know about it. We're going to bring about awareness to, depression, to suicidality, to Asperger's, to autism, to any number of different subjects that are out there that people are challenged with, and yet you wouldn't know it unless if they told you. So that's something that I think is going to be kind of cool, and we're going to have a tent that's going to be there, for our essential needs family, as well as for our page, our advocacy page for donorship, which is the Human Factor. And then we're also going to have a tent that's going to be for suicide prevention. So, this is something that we're really excited about, and we're going to do the best that we can with it. It's going to be the first event, and there's going to be ups, downs, and sideways. But I think by the time that it's all over, I think we're going to be pretty proud. So how's Wayne, the hacker?
Wayne is doing relatively well. I guess I can't complain too much. So I did have, I don't know what, I think it may change the weather No, I get these headaches sometimes. I can't tell if it's the weather changing or if it's a caffeine headache. But yeah, it was a caffeine headache, but it felt like it. So I'm gonna blame the weather change. But we had a big change in our weather from the last several days till today.
85 to 35 to now.
It's a lot. The thunderstorms are moving in, so there's a lot more moisture in the air. The temperature is, I don't know. I don't know. It was a miserable morning. I call it morning. I probably didn't get up till about noon. I don't know. It felt like 11:30. And we had a brief conversation before. I don't know what time that was. It felt like that was like that was 2 o'clock. Like, yeah. I don't know. It was
late.
It threw me off. Well, I was up late last night watching Game of Thrones. Okay, I admit it. I'm addicted.
I can't fix everything, but
but I guess I'm doing relatively well. I have a new therapist. I started about a month or so ago. Started with a new therapist, and I meet her tomorrow. With her again tomorrow. I just see her every other week. I was for a while I was seeing a therapist weekly, changing this new therapist. Now it's every 2 weeks. So maybe it's a good sign. Is that that
progression?
That I don't need to see a therapist every week. Maybe just once a week might be enough, or every other week might be enough. I did sign up for a couple of groups. Right now I'm only in one group. There's another group I think will start next Monday. Just to kind of deal with, I got like a lot of people, I have issues. I have, that I have to, take my medicine. If I get off my meds, it's a bad thing. If I'm not watching my mood, if I'm not watching where I am, I could fall victim to my mental illness.
Yeah. Right.
And one of the problems with that, which I'll tell, is, I have a co-occurring problem with addiction. Is a lot of drinking.
Sure.
A lot of drinking. And so if my medications aren't right, my mental state's not right, then I slip back into drink. And I don't want to do that. I got a streak going on here, 1,529 days.
Excellent. That's awesome.
That was if you watched last Thursday, I guess we kind of left it as a cliffhanger. Wayne, the steaks over the weekend.
Yeah, you tried teasing it out.
It was my birthday over the weekend, I guess.
That's right. It was your birthday.
So 51, yeah. In fact, when I posted pictures on the Facebook yesterday of not a lot of pictures, but 3 or 4 pictures of the getting ready for the barbecue yesterday.
Yeah.
So just get, but I got some replies. I was like, "What? Was that your birthday party yesterday?" No, that was the Memorial Day party. But,
yeah, quite a bit of the Arisen Strength family, the Serenely Speaking family, spoke up and said happy birthday, Wayne, and and of course then and I said this nice post about Wayne, and because I care about him greatly. He's a great friend of mine. He's like a brother. But then he had me watch one of the worst movies that are probably in the history of movies that I've ever seen. And so I take it all back. No, anyways.
Let's warn people. It was a made-for-TV movie. It was called Murder 101 from 1991 with Pierce Brosnan.
That's when I should have known, right then and there.
And it was a terrible movie. I'm gonna go, agree with Shane that it was a terrible movie. But to my way of watching it, it was actually one of those ones that went around the bend. It was actually so bad. It was like laughably bad that at the end, I think I might actually enjoyed it. It was not because they tried to make me enjoy it. It was just an awful, awful movie. But
I almost needed therapy.
Yeah,
afterwards. But
watch it at your own risk.
Yeah. Well, we're not movie critics. We're here for a reason, and that's with Arisen Strength. You'll notice that it's just Wayne and I. That's not just because it's Monday. Lately, some of our cast have fallen ill and had some issues. Charles Gerard, his wife, unfortunately, had a battle with diverticulitis. She's okay, but she is in the hospital. She needs to get plenty of rest and fluids. Charles has his own issues where he does dialysis a number of times throughout the week. So we just want to do a shout out to Charles and his wife and his family. Hoping that everybody gets better as soon as possible. You know, Charles is a big part of this family. Not only is he on the show, he does a lot for the different pages that we do, such as the Essential Needs family and the Human Factor, as well as his own page, which is Unveiling Stigma, you know, and also prevention to suicide too, so and depression. So, you know, get better, you know, everybody. Dan the man has been off the grid for a little while. He's back now, which I've talked to him today, and today's Monday. So he's back now. He's had some issues in regards to he was moving and a couple other things, but you know, he says that he's feeling better. You know, so you know, hopefully we'll have him on the show again. He has his own site, of which is the Depression the Warriors. I forget the exact name right off the back, but I mean, check out my site and you'll see his site is linked there. You know, which is Anxiety and Depression Warriors 2.0. That's what it is. And they are warriors. They really do look out for him and the site, and I enjoy being part of that family. Crystal, you know, we had Crystal for a show, you know, but no, really, Crystal would be here, but her daughter has taken ill a little bit. Her daughter suffers through a couple different things that are going on. One of them being full body RSD, which is a chronic pain condition, and she hasn't been feeling all that well. So I told Crystal, don't worry about the show. You know, do what you need to do in order to ensure that her daughter is taken care of, and also that she is doing the right things, which is getting the proper rest and nutrition that she can get, so that she can be strong for the long haul as opposed to just one show. So, you know, those are the things in regards to the cast. I want to, you know, do a shout out, make sure that everybody's doing well, and know that you're in my thoughts and in my prayers, hoping that everybody gets better. So, you know, and then we do full disclosure here with this show. I personally have been having some issues myself. You know, it's like I've been dealing with my depression. It's been kind of like a spiral. You know, many times people message me or direct message me and they say, you know, well, how can you have depression? You're always smiling. Or you know, do you really have depression? You don't look the part. That type of thing. Look, this is me and my depression. Okay, yes, I'm functioning in my depression, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel what it is that I feel on the inside. And there's a number of reasons why that is. I don't do well with holidays because of the relationships that I've not been able to keep, you know, with my conditions. You know, I think that's part of it. Another thing is that you know, everybody's been getting sick around me, and I've been fortunate enough in order not to get sick. But this flu thing is like traveling right behind me, trying to get to me, and sometimes it does get to me to where it makes me very exhausted. So I feel a little bit weak in that sense. And then, you know, what was really a good thing is that I was supposed to speak on behalf, you know, as I do, from a patient's point of view, at a local hospital here in Troy, New York, Samaritan Hospital. I was all set to go. We were ready to rock. I got there and everything, and it turns out that there was somebody who had passed away. That was very sudden, and unfortunately, it was, you know, because of the decisions that they made. And so I was affected by that. I didn't even know the person, as far as I know. I don't think I know the person. I might have seen them, obviously, but it still had an effect on me because I started to think, well, what if I was there a day before? Maybe if they had heard what it is that I had to say or something, maybe they could have taken that and they could have gotten through that day a little bit better. But so this is me and my depression. I deal with depression, and that's why I'm not as energy filled as I feel like the skin is hanging off my bones a little bit. But I'm doing the best that I can. I do what I can when I can. I'm getting, I've been laying down, taking naps. I've been eating well and everything. So, rest assured, I'm aware of it now, which is a little bit different than what it's been in the past. And that's what this show is about: is to bring awareness out there to make things different than what they were in the past. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think. I mean, just to see the difference, kind of like over the the year or 2 years now, I'm telling you, the level of awareness of what's going on with you is just like miles ahead, and that's one of the big first steps, or one of the early steps of mental health recovery, is sort of that awareness of what's happening with you, because depression is just so insidious that you can get yourself in a. I know for me, as a part of my personal story was buying into sort of depression, anxiety. I ended up in my apartment. I didn't go outside for a year and a half.
Yeah.
That was it was like it's one thing to you're not feeling it. You stay home for a day. So, I just want to stay in bed. I just don't want to go out today.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have done that, especially if you've had any kind of battle with mental illness. You've had those days where you just could not get out of bed, or you just could not leave the house. Just or maybe it was anxiety based, or whatever it was. You just felt like you needed to stay safe and stay in your house. But without that touchstone, without somebody, without your own self-awareness, without somebody else being able to point some things out to you, for me, about pointing out to me, I ended up in my apartment for a year and a half. Over 500 days. Did not go outside. And then finally, in the middle of the night, I made it to the police station and said, I need help. I don't know. My life was completely out of control. Not that my life is in any kind of control right now, but at that point, I had got my life completely out of control. And but there's awareness of it. I got to be aware if I'm not going outside, if I'm just shuttering myself in, or if I'm, and I change that. So change level of awareness very, very high. It's fun.
Yeah, it definitely is a big difference to me, to be aware of what it is that I'm thinking, feeling. Those thoughts, some of them are valid for sure, and some of them are distorted, and to the point as to where it's not gonna be this way every day in my life from here on out. There's gonna be a day as to where things are gonna go right back to where they were. Which is my high energy, my strength, my Arisen strength coming out even more than what it is now, and we're going to move on, and we're going to rock and roll for the rest of the year. So, this is me with my depression, and this is even though that I look like I'm highly functioning and everything, I can assure you that this is a labor of love this week. That doesn't mean that I don't want to do it, because I do. It's just one of those things as to where it just is. It's one of those things as to where you gotta put one foot in front of the other. So we're going to talk about addiction, right? This is a subject that has spanned the globe. No, this is one that has been in my life for far too long, and will continue to be. But it's something that that I'm very familiar with. It's something that I'm familiar with not only from myself, but I'm also familiar with from other people within my family, including my biological father. This is something that I have a lot of resentment for. I have a lot of resentment for addiction, no matter how welcoming it is to me. For me, I learned very early that both sides of my biological parents had addiction within their gene makeup. With my mother's side, it was alcoholism. With my biological father's side, it was alcoholism as well as drugs, as well as other things. So I knew very early on that that was a possibility, that I would have that addiction gene within my life. And I did everything I possibly could in order to not find out. But
You didn't want to tempt fate.
I really didn't. I'm a pretty headstrong kind of kid, especially back then, and I knew better than to fool around with it. I really did. I did everything that was possible not to get involved with addiction, and so I never did drugs. I still have never done drugs. I've never done weed. I've never done marijuana of any kind. It's not any. I'm not like Bill Clinton. Did you inhale or anything like that? No, I did nothing of it. Because I knew that it was a distinct possibility that if I started, I never would be able to stop. When I was younger, I didn't drink. I mean, it wasn't. Even to this day, it's not out of the realm of possibility that if Shane goes out to a bar, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. It's because that's what I do. Now, sometimes I do a Coca-Cola or something, but I mean, it's just I knew that this was something that I didn't want to get involved in, and I knew I knew the repercussions of it. With my biological father, he exited my life at a very early age, but he left a big impression, and not in a good way. So I knew I didn't want to be like that, and it didn't matter whether or not that there are people out there that are happy when they're drunk or when they're carousers, of which is what my grandmother and my grandfather, they owned bars. It's like second grandmother, she owned a bar here in Troy, and so did my grandfather. So this was not something that was out of the norm for my family, but at the same time, I knew what was possible, and so I tried to stay away from it as much as I could. How about you?
Definitely, alcohol was big on both sides in the family, both sides of my parents. Neither one of my parents had, while I was, living with them. I mean, maybe if my dad was younger, it's possible. I don't think my mom ever had a problem with drinking that I knew of, but I do know that it was in their family, brothers, sisters, parents. My dad, his parents actually had, he has two brothers and a sister. Were either taken from their parents or the parents put them in an orphanage. My dad spent 3 years in an orphanage. He then spent about 3 years in foster families, and then when he was 15, he left. He ran away from the foster family. He was being sent back to the state was coming in and they were going to take him from the foster family because of the foster father had a heart attack, and then the state decided they couldn't take care of foster. But he at that point he left, and he's been on his own since he was 15. But his brothers and sisters, or at least one brother and sister, probably both brothers, had some serious problems. I think one of his brothers may have actually died from exposure, drinking out in the winter, and then ended up dying. So I know it was a big of a problem there. And then and I used, but so maybe I was highly susceptible to addiction. And maybe it was addiction anyway, who knows? But I started drinking not until after I finished high school, but it didn't take long before I was drinking a lot, and then it went on for a lot of years, a lot of drinks. I was like a compulsive drinker. I got to the point where I could not go to sleep at night without drinking. It was all of a sudden that was one thing I didn't notice about drinking. It's like, hey, if I had like a 6-pack, I wasn't a real big liquor drinker, although to be fair, I drank a fair amount of liquor. But like a 6-pack at night before I went to bed, that would be a great way to end the night. Whatever I was doing during the day, and that wasn't even like considered like drinking. That was just more like I'm just gonna do that before I go to bed. It's just I would drink a 6-pack and I wouldn't even think of that as drinking. It was I would drink a 6-pack and then go out drinking.
Yeah.
Or something. So it was pretty pretty abusive. It was it was dangerous and it went on for a lot of years, and it took a while to get out of it. We'll throw it back to you.
Well, that, I mean, that's, I say that I did everything that was possible, and I say that for a reason, because there's a whole lot of people that are out there in society that believe that, well, if you really don't want to do it, then you won't do it, or if you just stop, if you really think that it's worth it to stop. I did everything possible in order not to get into this world. I had no idea that gambling was going to be part of this issue. And I really, not so much that I didn't know that gambling wasn't an addiction, I just didn't know that gambling was going to turn out to be an addiction in my life, with as much as control as to what I was able to have when it came to the other types of addiction that were out there. Mine is gambling. When it comes to my addiction, it is definitely that. It started out with football parlay cards. When it came to the gambling, but to back it up a little bit, though, when I was younger, I was addicted to video games, and the reason why I can tell you that is that one of the characteristics of addiction is excessive. Something that's excessive. Well, there used to be when I had a babysitter when I was younger, and a bunch of kids that were involved. And so there's that house, and then there's where my school was, and we walked to school every day, and we had to walk uphill both ways. No, we didn't.
Well, not that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. It was actually kind of flat, but there was a Cumberland Farms, and they had a video game, and at the time it was Pac-Man, and then it upgraded to Ms. Pac-Man. And what we would do is that we would stop at the store and we would get something, for our lunch, whether it be a candy bar or something, something crazy. Obviously, like sugar up whenever as much as we could, before we go to school. So we would go there, and then there's a video game. So we would play the video game up until just like the last minute to where now we can't walk to school. We need to run to school. And then when we get out of school, we go, and there's the Cumberland Farms, and there's the video game, which is in the middle. We stop there, we play there, and then we go home. It was like, it wasn't no big deal. But then when you start seeing yourself stealing quarters from your family, or hoarding money so that you can play the video game, you may not have known it then, but you know it now. I was addicted. I was addicted to that action, that lifestyle, that pattern, to go into to having to make decisions that were not healthy and that were not moral in any way, to be able to play a video game. And I remember breaking in, walking in and sneaking into my parents' room and taking quarters, from my father's little collection that he had there, and so that I could go ahead and I could play the video game. So that's excessive, and that's addiction, so I was not realizing it. I was already in the world of addiction without even knowing it, but then fast forward, where I got into the gambling was, started out with football cards. It's like, and it was a social thing. It was a thing as to where it was like, kind of fit. It was just welcoming. It really was. It was fun, but it also gave me validation. And anybody who's watched this show for a while, especially with regards to my depression and so forth, I lived a life that was without validation for quite a while. And that's not to say that it wasn't given to me. It's just to say that I wasn't taking it in. And so this was a way to validate my real value, which was to be able to pick sports, and I was good at sports, and I was good at statistics and everything like that. So I was given a reward, for that. So little did I know what it was going to start.
I think it's a good time here point to be honest. We kind of used a couple of these words today. But here's a good way about validating our feelings. Is you were completely, your feeling of not being validated is completely valid. You felt like you were not being validated.
Right.
But that was also coupled with a distorted thought where you didn't think you were being validated.
Right.
Now that's the one where we can, you can address distorted thinking, but we don't want to get on people for the way they feel. The way you feel is the way you feel, and you are completely valid in the way that you feel. If you don't feel validated, now it's upon you to try and address that feeling.
Right.
And maybe the way to do it is to check the thinking. It's like, is this really is this based on a distorted thought, or? But the one thing in this case was gambling. It scratched an itch that was there. There was a void. There was something going on where you didn't feel validated, and then all of a sudden you get into the gambling, and now you're starting to feel validated. I went from not feeling validated to feeling validated, and so this is one of the other technical terms we'll throw out. We are not medical experts. I mean, we're not licensed medical professionals. So we are not trying to give anybody any medical advice here. So don't think that we're giving medical advice. But we're going to use some of the words because, one, those are the words that the people who providers will be using. The other words they're going to use back at you probably.
Right.
But it becomes a maladaptive skill. This is something that you did for a reason, and when you initially did it, it served a purpose. I felt unvalidated. I did a little bit of gambling. Now I feel validated. Hey, that's a good thing. It's good to be in that place where you're feeling validated. What ends up happening after a while, a lot of times, and this is why it becomes maladaptive, is you continue to engage in this behavior, and you're not getting that same return. It's not satisfying. It's not doing you any good after a while. It gets to a point where it becomes harmful. So I just want to separate. Our feelings are valid, and we validate your feelings as well as we validate our own feelings. And don't beat yourself up for the way you feel. You can address your thinking. Thinking can be distorted. Shane gave a great example of he had these valid feelings of feeling invalidated. Okay. And then he left open the door because we don't know at this point in the story. He may or may not have had a distorted thought. Maybe he was being validated, maybe he wasn't. But from the point of view of the feelings, that wasn't I don't want to say, hey, shame on you for feeling invalidated. Just the way I felt. Okay. I thought it was a good point. I felt like I need to point that out.
Well, I mean, we do need to point that out, and we are not professionals, and it's like I say from the very beginning of the show. When I say the beginning, I mean before this year even. We help that professionals treat the patient, and that's the bottom line. I have a significant history in the medical field as a medical billing specialist and as a consultant in the revenue cycle. I could talk a whole lot of medical jargon. I've read a whole lot of medical records and talked with doctors. I've just had a tremendous amount of exposure to doctors and medical professions. So I talk a whole lot about clinical aspects of things. That's not what Arisen Strength is about. Arisen Strength is about, real feelings, and like you talk about, validating feelings. And that's why when I say one of our points when it comes to Arisen Strength, which is support. Support is not just, we're there to support you. Support is to acknowledge you, to acknowledge the fact that something happened, whether it be an injury, whether it be an illness, or whether it be a lifetime experience, whatever the case may be, something happened that made an effect on you to where it suppressed those dreams, talents, and capabilities that we once had and that we have within us, but never came out, never got out the way that we wanted them to because of what it is that we've been through. And so in our support, we acknowledge the fact that there was an effect. It does not matter whether or not somebody else believes it or not. You are valid in what it is that you felt that had an effect on you, and that's what Wayne is very he's talking about very well in regards to my situation. You know, I definitely was valid for the feelings that I had. It wasn't until much later on in life to where I started asking the question, well, did I have a distorted thought that was going on? In which case, that's a distinct possibility. So, and we'll get along. We'll talk about that, you know, more tonight in the next show. You know, and you know, so it's like, so when it came to gambling, it was very welcoming to me. My addiction was very welcoming to me. It was saying anything that I wanted to hear in order for me to take part in, participate with. It would tell me that I was, you know, King Farouk. If I wanted to be told, you know, if I wanted my ego stroked, it would do it. If I wanted to be told I was a piece of garbage, it would do it. It would sit there and tell me, you know, that you're not worth anything unless if you do this with me. And I say it like a third person because I actually liken my addiction to a demon within my mind. Is that demon is basically there to make my life a living hell, and has for a very long time. And I know that you've had your own situation with your addiction and bringing you to, you know, some levels that you never expected.
Yeah. Ultimately, but at one point in time, and this goes back 8 years or 9 years at this point, I ended up having to get rid of my house. I had a 4-bedroom house, suburban neighborhood, living. I had to surrender all that and move into a halfway house. And I spent 9 months in a halfway house. And part of it was dealing with the addiction, with my alcohol, compulsive drinking. And then the other part was dealing with some of the mental issues that were going on. I didn't pay as much attention to the mental issues at that point. And by that I mean it turns out that recently in the last couple of years been diagnosed with bipolar 1. With and back then I was just being diagnosed depressed with anxiety, not otherwise specified, generalized anxiety, NOS, not otherwise specified. And so I was taking a lot of meds for the depression. I was taking a lot of meds for the anxiety. I wasn't taking anything to treat the bipolar. And then that was a little bit of an issue for me. And so I wasn't properly addressing my mental health issues. So I was continuing self-medicating. I mean, I managed to get about 2 years clean, almost 3 years clean at that point. And moved out of the halfway house and got a place living on my own. Originally moved into a 2-bedroom place, and then I started, my mental health started getting to me a little bit. I moved to a smaller studio apartment, and then and ultimately stopped going outside altogether. I mean, it was one of these that was like closed, shutting down, little by little over a period of years, going out less. When I went out, I was only drinking was the only reason I would ever go out. There was a lot going on that wasn't being properly addressed, and this was the battle going on for years. And then for the last couple of years, is it 3 years now? It's over 4 years. I think 1,500 days. Now we're past 4 years. I just count I don't even really count the days. I mean, so I think is my recovery is a 1 day at a time recovery plan. So I just know that I can't drink today. I know yesterday when I said that, I had 1,528 days. So I know today when I say that, I have 1,529. I'm not counting in the sense of like tracking them all. I don't carry it around as a burden, I guess. I don't care. I just add one to the day. So tomorrow when I do this, the number I'll be throwing around if I can get to bed sober tonight, which is looking good right now since it's getting late. Tomorrow when I wake up and I make my daily commitment to not drink that day, the number I'll be using will be 1,530. But it's not So it's not like I count the days as far as a burden that I carry around in a bucket. It's just more like I have a little card that has just today's number on it. That's the only thing I carry around, just a reminder that I don't ever think of in terms of months, weeks, years. So sometimes I get a little confused. Like around a little shop now, I think, oh, that's over 4 years. Well, it was only really just one day, just today. Much like how I kept myself inside for 500 days. Just do it one day at a time.
Well, and that's but now's a good time in order to talk about what addiction really is, because people have asked me, but you're so strong, or you're so capable. At one time, I had a possibility of being a golf professional, because of my addiction, that didn't mature. That didn't happen. Now's a good time in order to talk a little bit about addiction. I know I don't talk a lot about clinical aspects of things, but this is an opportunity in order to be able to bring what addiction really is, and it really is. It's becoming more and more talked about now as a brain disease. This is something that has nothing to do with wanting or needing or anything like that. This is actually an illness that's within our brain. Now, that's not to say that we are victims, and that's not to say that we are incapable of making decisions that are healthy.
But it's a choice to start gambling.
Yeah. Well, it's a choice to start, but you have no choice in the long run. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that what happens is that we have a whole lot, like billions of neurons within our brains, and our cerebral senses. So there's these neuron pathways, and we've talked about neuron pathways with other subjects like multiple sclerosis, and we're going to talk about with PTSD as well. We talked about the amygdala and everything. So these neurons, this neuron path, is all about the reward pathway, which is in the brain. Now the thing is that we all have things that we enjoy. We all have things that we like doing, and we get reward for it within our mind. We say, oh, we like this. We're having fun with this. Even though that when that happens, that should go into the reward center, the reward path into your brain to tell you, hey, this is a good thing. When we do that in a generalistic sense, and again, this is a very crude way of looking at things. It's not very clinical at all. But in a generalistic sense, there is a delay that happens from when you do the activity to when you receive the reward from the reward pathway. So there's a delay. It's meant to be that way. And what happens is that it allows the brain to release this inner drug in your mind, which is dopamine. It's an inner chemical that's within the brain.
Neurotransmitter, right?
It's a neurotransmitter, and it basically releases this amount of dopamine. Now, depending on the situation, you have more dopamine or less dopamine. Okay, in order to give you the feeling that you have. Also, serotonin is part of it as well. But dopamine is a big part of this. So what happens is that dopamine gives you a euphoric aspect of things. It gives you that feeling of goodness, that feeling of this is cool, this is fun, this is good for us. So we all have had that situation. Well, when we're talking about addiction, what happens is that we have that activity that we enjoy, or that certain thing, whether it be food or alcohol or gambling or sex or whatever the case may be. We have that activity as to where we enjoy it. There's no delay. it goes from point A to point B. It goes from the action to the reward center, and the brain doesn't know what to do because it hits the reward center and it emphasizes the reward pathway. Okay, so what happens is that the brain is saying, hey, the reward pathway here is asking for a whole lot, so we need to fulfill that order. So it sends it all dopamine that it thinks that it needs in order to fulfill that order. Okay, so the dopamine goes in like a rush, and it's there, and it's euphoric, and it's to the point as where it's like you will not ever feel like this again. You know, it's like you're sitting there and you're saying, hey, I want to do this now, later, and forever. And so you're sitting there. Now, here's the big problem when it comes to addiction. It's not just a one-time thing. What happens is that the brain it's a recorder in some ways. It records our patterns, and it records our things that are going on within us. So when we got flushed with that dopamine, okay, the brain is saying, hey, when we do this, we're supposed to have this much dopamine put into it. So if you do A, then you need this much dopamine. When you do B, you need this much dopamine. Well, when you're doing an addictive activity, it's the max dopamine right off the bat. Okay, so your brain's sitting there saying this is what it needs. So now here it is that you go ahead and you do this activity again and again and again, and you are expecting to get that feeling again. You're supposed to, your brain is saying you need this much dopamine. Dump the dopamine. Dump the dopamine. Well, here's the problem. It doesn't do it. It doesn't get to that maximum that it was before. Why? Because the neurotransmitters, what they do is if you take, this is, again, it's a crude way of looking at it, but if your neurotransmitter before you did your addiction was the size of my pointer finger, okay, it's the length of my pointer finger. There's your neurotransmitters were that way going to the reward pathway, and it created all that dopamine to go in that way. Well, what the brain does, and it's amazing what the brain does naturally, the brain realizes all this dopamine's coming in, and it's only coming from this many transmitters, okay? Granted, millions, billions, you know, but it's still saying we need more transmitters in order to sustain all this dopamine. So what it does is it creates more transmitters, and the transmitters go out, extend out from where the originals were. Here's the problem. They're no longer this long. They're this long. Now they're as long as your pinky, not your pointer finger. So what happens is that it can never get to that dopamine flush that you've had in the past. And so no matter how many transmitters, now your brain is saying there, hey, I gave you more transmitters, so you should be able to have more dopamine. You should be able to have the max. Why aren't you ready to go? But the body, it just doesn't happen that way. So you're sitting there and you're constantly waiting for that dopamine rush, and you never get there. And that's part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the brain does these interesting things because the neurotransmitters. You're dumping the dopamine right into the I guess what
reward pathway.
Yeah, there's a synaptic
synapses
gap.
Yeah,
and then so you have these receptors. So the neurotransmitter comes out, the dopamine comes out of one neuron, and it has to travel across a little gap, and there has to be little receptors on the other side to catch it. And your body likes to adjust, for some reason it can, the number of receptors
right.
That it has. So if you're dumping lots of dopamine, then your body will say, oh, you need more receptors, more. But the other thing that your body will do too is when you engage in addictive behavior, it learns to count on that addictive behavior to dump the dopamine. So now other things that may have made you feel good in the past, or may have had the potential of making you feel good if you had done them, that would have triggered this dumping of dopamine, a lot of times don't do it because your body is kind of regulating, saying, whoa, let's not flood him with too much dopamine. He's going to be doing that thing that he does, that, so we'll get that. So now you really get addicted where the only time you're feeling anything is when you're engaging in this behavior, and which makes, of course, quitting a lot harder. You withdraw and you stop engaging in your addictive behavior, and then you feel really low for a long time. Your body has to adjust to the new situation. We're saying the brain is amazing, the way it sort of balances everything over time, and you can train your brain to get yourself addicted to things. And quitting cold turkey is very difficult because of you're shocking your body, really, what you're doing.
Right. And now here's another aspect of addiction. It's another characteristic of addiction. Is you know me, I like analogies, so I'm going to try to give you a picture of what it is that it's like. If you say you're thirsty, so you have a drink of water, okay? So the waiter goes, however long it takes a minute or two, whatever it takes, and they bring you a glass of water. You take a drink of that water and you're fine. Everything is just hunky-dory, everything's normal, everything is not, it's very level, it's not unbalanced in any way. Now, somebody who's addicted or with addiction, they go ahead and they ask for that drink of water. Well, that drink of water is not something that they want. It's something that they insatiably need. Okay? So they go ahead and then they have the waiter go into the same amount of time that it took for the other person to get that glass of water. But here's the thing. They are not calm in any way. It's not balanced in any way. In fact, you feel like you're out in the middle of a desert and you've not had a drink of water in 3 months. And your body is going to die. It's going to shut down if you don't have this glass of water. And so, again, we talked about the thoughts before. This isn't a fact. It's not a fact. But this is what it is that the brain is playing, because the brain is saying, hey, we need this. You're doing this activity. I need all this dopamine, and therefore I need it now. And so we're still waiting on that glass of water. Again, it's the same amount of time that it took for the average person to receive. But now the addict is sitting there, and they feel like they're going to die before they get that glass of water given to them.
Yeah, all the stress response will kick in,
Yep.
and so now the amygdala is fired up,
Sure.
And then that will also start inhibiting the frontal cortex, which is the place where you do all your rational thinking,
Right.
keep yourself calm, and keep your thoughts from getting too distorted. All that becomes suppressed, and now, you feel like you are in this. So you get fidgety, you get you're nervous, you get scared, your heart starts racing, and you get anxiety, right? You get snippy with people,
Mm-hmm.
and you really feel like it's why is that water not here yet?
Yeah.
Because all your ability to think about it clearly is being suppressed. So these things, it's amazing. The body is this amazing balancing act. It goes a little bit one way, it goes a little bit the other way, it goes a little, and it tries to maintain this balance, but. When you get addictive behavior, you start biasing it in one direction or the other, and then you're rocking a boat in some sense, and it creates chaos.
Yeah, and it's totally extreme to extreme, and it's something that is very hard to explain, and I don't expect people who don't have addiction to understand. This show is to bring awareness to what it is that we have, because we have listeners, we have followers that are not addicted to anything, and so and they have questions just as much as what anybody who has addiction has, and believe me, this show is not to validate the addiction. It's not to validate the actions that come about due to addiction. It's not or the the treatments that you know, people have been treated by people who have addiction and so forth. It's certainly not to validate that in any way. This is just simply to bring awareness to, you know, in some you know, crude education from a patient's point of view, you know, out to those so that they can understand it a little bit, and to understand the person a little bit more than the actual addiction or illness that it is. As I said, this show, this is only one of two. You know, we plan on, you know, I think it would be irresponsible to go ahead and talk about, you know, what we've been through, you know, with our addiction, and, you know, what it is that we go through, and how impossible it is to control, and it's so terrible for us, and then not acknowledging those who have been, you know, affected by it, and unfortunately, the effects of addiction go far past the person that's addicted. You know, it hits parents, it hits you know, brothers, sisters, children, it hits co-workers, it hits perfect supervisors,
people who work for you, you know.
Yeah, perfect strangers. You know, it hits. You know, so we're going to next week. We're going to acknowledge some of those people that of our personal situations. I personally am. I know for sure. I don't know what Wayne is thinking, but maybe make some amends, you know, for the activities that I had done and the decisions that I had made, and explain why I did that, and also to get it out. And then we're going to talk about a word that was unbelievably important in my life, and that was recovery. You know, because I think we would be irresponsible to talk about addiction and then not talk about recovery, because I think recovery is necessary for everybody to hear about, not just the addiction, not just the one that deals with addiction, but also those who are supporters of those who are addicted.
Recovery, that's the celebration part of the.
It really is, yeah.
The support, empowerment, celebration triangle, cycle. When you can get that recovery place where you're actually getting out there and you're living your life now, and you're living a new life, and that's the celebration part, and that's really kind of where we want to work up to. The one thing I did want to mention about the addiction, and part of bringing the awareness here and talking about what sort of the causes, not the causes, but this awareness of, like, explaining how we got into it a little bit, is to give the sense of we don't want people to throw water on a grease fire. Really, right. Is have a little understanding of what a person who is either in the throes of their addiction, or a person who's early just coming out of their addiction, to have that little bit of understanding of that they got there for a reason. Nobody grows up and says, I want to be a drug addict. Mm. You know, I want to be an alcoholic. I want to be a gambling addict. You know, that's not a dream. That's not something you work towards. Mm. It's a place that you end up, and you end up there a lot of times for a reason. And so being sensitive to the fact that that person, that they have their reasons, whether they are distorted or not, is irrelevant. But they have their reasons. Those reasons triggered feelings, and those feelings were addressed with the addiction in most cases. So it's just to be aware of that, so that you don't jump in right away and be extra judgmental, or doing things where you out of the kindness of your heart, trying to help them, that you could actually be doing something maybe a little bit over the top, or a little bit crossing the line. And so it's to be just aware. I don't know what the right answer is and how you should treat them, but if you're aware that the other person has issues, then just that awareness might be enough to slow you down before you start dumping the water all over the grease fire.
Well, that's two things that I talk about when I do my speeches, is the fact, when I talk on behalf of, from a patient's point of view, number one is suspension of disbelief. Okay, what is suspension of disbelief? Well, that's basically taking some time away from what we would normally do, is to where we are, we're putting on hold, or we're suspending our first reaction or our instinct to not trust or not believe something. And let's face it, addiction is a pattern. It's one that has beaten many people up over time. And sometimes people come to their end point as to where they don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to be part of it anymore. So to do suspension of disbelief is the way that I do things, because I'm not saying that you're not entitled to the way that you feel or what it is that you think. What I'm asking is for people to just take that moment, for that time when we're together, is to put on hold their instinct just for that period of time, to where they can think differently and they can think on behalf of what it is that I'm trying to get across. And then you mentioned water on a grease fire, which is one that I'm really known for, where I bring across the fact that our supporters, our loved ones, they are doing nothing but trying to help. They're trying to do the best that they possibly can in order to help, and they're using what is instinctual to do so. And so they're doing everything that they think is right. But the bottom line is that some things that we do that we think is right is probably the worst thing that we can do at the time, and it creates this huge divide. And when I say water on a grease fire, you put water on a grease fire, you put one ice cube of water on a grease fire, you got 1,600 cubes of problem instantly, just like that. And that's why everybody gets burned. Whether it be the patient or whether it be the supporter, it's one of those situations as to where that subject of that illness, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that ice cube, that expands everywhere, and what it does is it takes the grease with it.
Yep.
So that the grease fire is down here. All of a sudden, you throw the water in there, it's converted it now to steam. The steam fills up, 1,600 times the volume, the original volume.
Yeah.
But and with that, it drags along a lot of that oil with it, that grease, and now the fire is everywhere. So you're not containing the fire, you're actually spreading the fire,
right.
Which you may have felt when you're eating spicy chicken wings. Don't drink a glass of water, because you just end up spreading all that heat all throughout your mouth. Drink a glass of milk, right? Or eat some blue cheese that coats it, and then the same with the grease fire. Use the fire extinguisher or baking soda. There's a different approach to the fire than just throwing water on it. Water will spread a grease fire like nobody's business.
I think Wayne's hungry.
Yeah,
he's hungry for
some wings.
Hungry for wings. But those are two things that I talk about. So again, we've gone a little bit further than our normal hour, which is fine. I don't care. It's all about the content, and it's all about the person that we're trying to help and educate. Next week, we're going to talk about addiction again. We're going to talk about our story a little bit further. It's where I'm going to, you're going to learn that my addiction literally took the identity of my life. And talk about that, and then we're going to talk about how it affects so far farther along than just the person that's addicted, and then we're going to talk about recovery. So it's going to be a full show. For those who do watch our show, you'll recognize that we want you to ask questions. We actually have a way of being able to get questions from you now with Google and the Google Hangout. We're going to start the show approximately 15 to 10 minutes before the hour, so that you can go ahead and you can type in your question. All you have to do is you'll just have to hit the play button, and it'll bring you right to the YouTube window where you see the show at, and you'll see in the bottom left it says if you want to join.
Join the discussion.
Yeah, if you want to join the discussion.
Or join the conversation.
Yeah, join the conversation, and that allows you to be able to ask any questions that you have. You know, and I'm not saying that we're going to address every single one. You know, bang, bang, but I'll do the best that I can in order to steer the conversation towards the answer that you're looking for. And if we don't get through it with the show, I'll personally contact you and you know, give you the answer that you're looking for.
You can also use the question feature to shoot us a message during the live broadcast. If there's some technical difficulties or
difficulties,
spinach in my teeth, you know, anything like that. You know, if you feel like you want it, there's some comments you want to pass along to us. You know, by all means, you know, give them to us so we can see. You know, we don't know a lot of stuff that's going on. You know, here we're focused on doing some things, and sad, as strange as it may seem, one of the things we don't really notice is what does it look like on YouTube. You know, you know, that's like one of the last things that we kind of get around to. So we kind of count on you guys for that. So if there's something going on with YouTube, you're not getting the audio, you're not getting the video, there's just something weird going on, just, you know, comments you want to make go easy. You can use the question.
Yeah, we take good ones too, by the way.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't always have to be criticism.
But you can fire that along, and you know, and yeah, we appreciate seeing those comments while we're doing the show. And
one thing, the reason why I bring this up is that the audio of the show is not going to start until 8 o'clock. So you'll see our picture, you'll see the video going on, you'll see us even talking to one another, but you won't hear anything. It's nothing to do with your speakers. It's nothing to do with the video not coming through or anything like that. The audio will not go on until 8 o'clock, and it will go on right at 8 o'clock. So that's the reason why I know some people have gotten confused with it. And you know, we're just trying to do some different things to try to be more appreciative of the audience, as well as be available for the audience to be able to participate and interact with. You know, so that's something that's important to me. You know, this is a purpose. This isn't just about a show, and it sure isn't just about my ego and celebrity. So.
And that's not the only way they can talk with us, right?
No, you can also contact us. There's a few different ways. There's our email, which is arisenstrength@gmail.com. I check that daily and hourly. You know, so you can send us a question or you know, tell us how it is that you think the show's going. Another way that you can get us is on Twitter. We're getting really involved with Twitter. I think that Twitter is a pretty big venue, a source to be able to get the message out to those who really need it. Twitter is our page is @ArisenStrength. If you want to tweet to us, just use the hashtag #ArisenStrength. You know, and then of course we have our group, which is called the Arisen Strength Family. And the reason why it's called the family is because that's the way that I feel. You'll notice that in the beginning of the show, we took quite a bit of time talking about those people who are part of that family and their family to me. So this purpose is something that's very important to me, and one that I feel that is necessary in my life and others. So that's why we call it the Arisen Strength Family. You know, so those are the ways that you can contact with us. Definitely give us the feedback because, like Wayne always likes to say, learn, improve, share. We try to do that as best as we can. Hopefully, I'll be feeling a little bit better, you know, either by Thursday or definitely by Sunday. And if not, I'm still going to be here, and we're still going to get things done. But I can rest assured that I'm taking care of myself, and I appreciate everybody's, you know, concern. So that's about it. Anything else? Okay. Folks, I just want to say thank you for watching the show. Sorry for some of the confusion that's been going on. You know, we're doing the best that we can, and we're learn, improve, share, and we're full disclosure. So come back and watch the second show of Addiction on Sunday night, and also join us on Thursday when we do the recap show, when we go over some memorable moments of this show, as well as give you a preview of what we're going to do for next Sunday. Thanks again. Have a good night, folks.